G'day, ladies and gents. Just want to confirm that audio is working. Seems that I have some technical issues. Oh, it's working. Fantastic. I thought for a second I had some technical issues. Not a great start to our webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, everyone from Africa, welcome. It's very nice to see you again. It's nice to be with you again. We continue in our African exploration of AI and CX. This is one of a number of webinars that have been put together by our friends Machine Learning Africa. So I'd like to take the time to welcome you to our AI in Customer Experience webinar. So, usually I start with this introduction because we all know in these disruptive times, designing robust and effective digital customer experience is very essential for any organization to succeed. Exceptional customer experience, as we refer to it sometimes CX, it leads to improved client retention and to revenue growth. But in addition, many organizations are also deploying AI, artificial intelligence, alongside other technologies in order to improve their customer experience. I'd like to thank our event sponsor, Freshworks, the parent company behind a suite of products including Freshdesk, Fresh Service, Fresh Sales, Fresh Caller, Fresh Team, Fresh Chat, and Fresh Marketer. All of these products are designed to work together in order to increase collaboration and to help teams better connect and communicate with their customers and with their co-workers. So my name is Eldon. I am, for my day job, the Director of Customer Experience for the CX Group. We see our role as helping brands create the greatest customer experience stories, specifically in Africa, where we want to start creating the best customer experience stories across the African market. We have been exploring AI and CX across Africa. I myself have been doing so. This week, I've actually been playing around with a bunch of international solutions to do my own AI-driven text analysis and sentiment analysis. So it's interesting for me to actually, jump into the technical side of AI and understand for myself what goes into understanding voice of the customer solutions, and how that kind of data analysis leads to insight that starts to inform customer experience strategies. So during today's conversation, we're going to explore that a little bit more. We're going to have a presentation from Ashwin Sankar from Freshworks. He's going to be talking to us about using AI and automation in order to transform customer experience. We're going to have a presentation by Shane Petersen. Shane is the Managing Director at Origo Africa, and he's going to speak to us about enabling AI, enabling uptime, and using that to drive customer experience and customer experience outcomes. Later on in the afternoon, we're going to have a Q&A session. So we're going to have a three-way conversation where I will moderate, but we will bring in Francis Sirus, who is also part of the Freshworks sales team, as well as Shane Petersen, and we'll be exploring some topics around AI and CX. That's going to cover what Freshworks is doing in this space, as well as some of the learnings from Shane in his role as previously being someone who looked after the elements of the customer value proposition at Shell, as well as what he's doing now at Origo Africa. So very, very interesting lineup. We hope you're going to sit back, enjoy, relax, and enjoy the conversation with us, really. So let's introduce our first speaker, who is Ashwin Sankar. Ashwin is a very versatile professional with a flair for sales, business development, and customer relationship management. He's always looking forward to meeting new people and making new connections. After all, it's the people that no one imagines anything of who do the things that no one can imagine. Ashwin is currently at Freshworks, the parent company behind all of those products we mentioned earlier. And we know that these products are designed to work together to increase collaboration and help you connect better with your colleagues and with your customers. So Ashwin, very nice to see you again. We're going to invite you to turn your camera on. To get going, I would really like to understand from you, for your talk today, who ideally is your target audience? So for the message that you're sharing with our African colleagues today, who are you looking to speak to? And then we're looking forward to hear from you from your presentation today.
All right, so thanks for that introduction, Eldon. Unfortunately, I'm not able to switch on my video because there's some bandwidth issues back at home. So yeah, for now, I will have to make do with my voice. Let's hope that will be okay. So ladies and gents, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're from. It's nice to meet you all. Just like Eldon said, a quick heads up. Basically, my presentation is going to be for the next 10 or at most 15 minutes. In case you are a IT professional or a customer service or sales and marketing professional, we are going to cover on a high level the solutions that we have to offer here at Freshworks that could aid your organization's capabilities, as well as give some recent trends, up-to-date modern trends in the AI space with respect to customer experience. In case you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat box available. We could always cover them in the session post the presentation as well. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Please confirm once you're able to view it. Yes, I hope my screen is visible.
We can see it. Thank you, Ashwin.
Perfect, perfect. So before I begin with the presentation itself, I just wanted to cover Freshworks' vision or the motto as such that we follow. We would like to enable every business out there to actually create customers for life with our solutions, right? So this is basically aided by our solution portfolio, right? Let's just give you an idea of the company as such. So we were founded more than a decade back in 2010. We do have close to 400 million in investments till date, and one of our amongst all our notable investors, one of our most notable investors would have to be Google Capital. We were the very first company outside of the United States to actually secure funding from them. And yeah, we have been doing close to or above $200 million of annual recurring revenue, and we have about 200,000 customers spread across the globe. We do have 13 offices globally, right, spread across Asia Pacific, as well as the US, UK, and the rest of Europe. And we have close to 4,000 employees as of now. And we basically, a two-line introduction about the company as such would be that we provide cloud-based customer engagement as well as employee engagement solutions to businesses, right? And when I mention cloud-based, the next part that you might probably be thinking is, where's the data hosted? So we do have 5 data centers, as you can see in the slide. We have all our data hosted on Amazon Web Service data centers, AWS centers. Again, these are spread across different geographies, ranging from the US to Europe, as well as Australia, for that matter. So this is our solutions portfolio, right? Like Eldon had mentioned earlier, we have an entire suite of solutions ranging from the likes of omni-channel customer support software, which is our flagship product, Freshdesk. Just a quick note about Freshdesk is that Freshdesk is the only visionary to be present in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for 2 years now. This is the second consecutive year that we've been mentioned there, right? And this would all come down to the fact that we do dedicate a lot of our time, effort, as well as money to making sure our products are on the global scale and they're all cutting edge as such. So yes, we do have solutions catering to customer support, Fresh Service is going to be our IT service management solution, ITSM solution. This would handle things like IT asset management, project management, as well as the entire end-to-end change management lifecycle. And then the next up is going to be our CRM. We do have Freshworks CRM, which is meant to be used by both sales teams as well as marketing teams. It can take care of all your lead tracking as well as pipeline management, as well as email marketing needs. And next up would be Freshcaller. Freshcaller is basically our cloud-based telephony system, right? It's a basic contact center management tool. To call it basic wouldn't be right, but yeah, it is a contact center management tool which can enable your contact center to work at a higher productivity, as well as give you more visibility and transparency into what's happening. And next up would be Fresh Chat. Fresh Chat is our modern live chat as well as chat bot platform. One key thing about this is that Fresh Chat is one of the very few Facebook business partner approved solutions, which means we have a native integration with WhatsApp available in our solution. And this has basically gained us a lot of traction in the African continent specifically. We have seen a number of businesses across Africa use both Freshdesk as well as Fresh Chat. Just some off the top of my head would be Stewart Bank, the UBA Group, Sterling Bank, as well as the Liquid Telecom and Sanlam Life Insurance, right? So the second to last solution is going to be Fresh Team. Fresh Team is a relatively nascent product. It's basically our HR platform in which you can track your employee onboarding, employee offboarding, as well as do some payroll related functionalities. Yes, and these last solutions are still in a very nascent stage. We haven't actively started approaching our prospective customers with these yet. But to give you just a quick overview, Fresh Success is going to be our customer success software in which you can actually track how happy your customers are with the products or the services that you're offering, and analyze and see whether product adoption is up to the expected mark, and in case it isn't, you can handle it. Fresh Ping is basically used to monitor website uptime and downtime, and in case there is an issue with your website, it's going to give you an alert, sort of like an alert management software. Fresh Status is basically used to just ensure there's better downtime communication, and that is a gap that we had identified a long time back. We are working on it. So that's basically a wrap on our solutions portfolio as such. In case anybody has any questions on the solutions we have to offer, like I said, just feel free to drop a note in the chat box. We'll make sure to get back to you. So let's move on to the topic of today's webinar, right? So AI in customer experience. So we do know that customer behavior has changed, right? In fact, just imagine us as customers. Aren't we more comfortable reaching out to businesses online rather than actually walking up to a store or walking up to some other business to have your query addressed? Customers today live their entire lives on digital media, right? So there has been a 50% increase in the usage of messaging apps like WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, as well as Telegram during the past year. And this is only slated to go up as more and more people start adopting internet as such. And this might be a little tricky, but this is true. Most of us have minimal to no patience at all. I wouldn't blame us, right? The average attention span for the modern customer is 8 seconds, right? And customers of today would prefer a white glove experience. So what this white glove experience actually means is that we would prefer to be treated as a person and not exactly another number or another ID in their database, right? We really value customer experience, and the way we're treated is very important to us today. So all of this has basically led to a rise in customer experience expectations, right? Customers would want businesses to address them wherever they are, whenever they want, as well as just make it customized and personalized to their needs. So even today, wouldn't we prefer if your issue was just addressed in just one click or two clicks, right? That one click resolution is something that is developed to be a lot more important and is just going to grow over the coming years. So I'm just sharing a few snippets with you on the screen. These are from different news articles over the course of 2019, 2020. And if you see these, I'm sure one common thread that links them all that you would be able to identify is going to be AI. Giants from the likes of Facebook, Amazon, Vodafone or Vodacom, as well as HSBC and AirAsia, they all have started using or have started implementing AI in some form or another over the course of the past few years. So this is it, right? The world is shifting to a digital customer experience. Anytime hyper personalized support, which can be provided by a combination of bots or chatbots, as well as humans or human assistants across multiple channels. The keyword being omni-channel is the priority of the day. So the need to provide consistent and superior customer experience is actually driving more and more investment in artificial intelligence. In fact, the use of AI by customer service teams is projected to increase by 143% over the next year and a half. So this basically is an indication that in the coming year or two, we're going to be seeing a lot more interaction with AI in our day-to-day lives, be it you placing a phone call or you sending an email or even a WhatsApp message. More often than not, you're going to be at least initially greeted by an artificial intelligence solution. And in fact, 80% of customer service leaders already use artificial intelligence in their customer experience and customer support, or they plan to do so this year, by the end of this year. And it's just expected to power 95% of all customer interactions by 2025. And this is a large number if you actually think about the scale of things in which we're talking about. And again, customer experience automation is predicted to drive a lot of global investment. And in fact, it's predicted to be the number one artificial intelligence use case by the end of this year. So a wide range of industries are increasingly using AI to transform customer service. And the main component of AI in customer service is machine learning for automation. So coming to AI in our solutions, we have something called Freddy. I would encourage you all to just Google Freshworks Freddy, and you'll be greeted by a very, very cute dog, even if I say so myself. All dogs are cute. But yeah, coming to the topic again, AI generated insights into customer behavior can actually increase profits and improve return on investment. I mean, most organizations actually view customer experience as a key differentiator. So getting it right is the need of the hour. And in fact, AI cannot be robotic. It needs to actually have a human touch built into it. You need to be provided with answers and not articles. You need to be engaged with and not just deflected off by AI. And the AI actually needs to learn and adapt to situations over time. It cannot work off of the same knowledge base as such, right? And like I mentioned, the need of the hour is to personalize and not generalize. And the best part of the AI that's coming into picture today is that it is actually for people like you and I, be it a person from an IT background or a sales and marketing background or a customer experience background. These are meant for the people who actually use solutions in their day-to-day lives for us builders. And it's not really restricted to data scientists as such. And in fact, AI is actually going to aid humans in terms of working together to just provide an overall better experience. And contrary to popular belief, it is not really going to replace humans as such. And the best part about AI is that AI is scalable. Unlike having to add human resources to actually address the load issues that you might have, you can use AI to actually scale your service and reduce the total ROI as such that you're spending. So this is just diving a level deeper into what I mentioned. You need to provide a customer with answers and not really just generic vanilla articles. And the answers that are being provided, they need to be to the point. They need to actually resolve a customer's query rather than just keep the customer asking more questions. So we at Freshworks, we've developed AI-based systems that can instantly respond to customer requests. Context-aware AI sifts through complex data and knowledge-based articles, analyzes the customer's association with the brand, interprets their query, and provides an answer all within a matter of a few seconds. So what you see on the screen is actually a bot interacting with a customer, right? So it's really as simple as sending a text from your WhatsApp or your Facebook Messenger and making sure your query is addressed in as quick as possible. Yes, so the purpose of AI, like I mentioned, is not to just deflect, but it is to actually engage with customers and delight them. Because you need to go a step beyond just deflecting a query by increasing the opportunity to engage with customer, and we all need to do this at a scale, right? In fact, we've in certain cases, and again, this is specific to the African continent, we've actually seen up to 70% reduction in resolution times with Freddy and 80% deflection rates. And this is almost 16 times higher than most our competitors out there. So low turnaround times lead to higher customer satisfaction scores, a better perception of your brand's ability to handle future issues, and an overall reduction in the churn of customers. Yes, so AI should learn and adapt over time. It cannot be static. Freddy, like I mentioned earlier, uses machine learning to learn and constantly adapt to make sure that its agent responses and user feedback is taken into consideration with every interaction, right? The same actually can't be said about most of our competitors because they mostly rely on keyword based searches, and there's little to no sentiment analysis that goes on in the background, right? Our AI actually uses data analysis to continuously learn and improve, and it actually gives you a highly accurate understanding of your customers at the end of the day. Yes, this is just an example of personalization, right? And I did mention Freddy. You can still see Freddy here too. So this is an actual bot interaction that happens, right? So a customer is approaching a brand and he's saying he needs help with order delivery, and it is automatically pulling up his recent purchases and displaying it to him, right? So this is the need of the hour, to understand the context of each conversation and actually make it easy for customers to get their needs serviced without being asked too many questions at once. Yes, so like I mentioned again, AI is actually working together with humans and not really replacing them. That's the case here as well. Freddy actually uses bots to unlock the true potential of agents, right? Your customer service staff or your sales and marketing staff. It works with them to offer a seamless and effortless customer experience. In fact, our AI actually helps agents focus on complex customer issues, right? AI applications contribute to quantifiable results in customer experience, such as a reduction in negative comments on social media, or maybe faster ticket resolution, or maybe even lower contacts pre-order. Again, I know there's a lot of solutions out there in the market that offer you, let's say, maybe social media management, or let's say an AI chatbot alone, or a contact center management piece alone. With our product suite, you actually get a 360-degree view of the customer no matter where they're from. That's why we call it an omni-channel experience. So we provide an integrated experience by making sure all our solutions work hand in hand with each other and eliminate the need to work with different tools in silos, resulting to a loss of data as well. So yes, this is what I mentioned earlier. The benefits of people and AI working together actually helps build customers for life, right? So this is what is the backbone of all our AI: personalization, constant adaptive learning, scalability, as well as this whole concept of harmony in working together with humans. And the benefits of this are going to be threefold. The first people or the first group to be benefited are going to be your customers, right? Your customers are going to have a seamless experience, which will lead to them being happy and returning to you again because of the personalized support that's yielded to them. Second group is going to be your agents themselves. The people who are interacting with these customers, they're the face of your company, right? Be it a salesperson who's approaching a cold prospect, or a customer service person who is addressing a query of an existing customer of yours. Their productivity and efficiency is going to be increased, which is going to benefit both you as well as your customers at the end of the day by saving time, effort, and money for both parties involved. The third benefit is going to be for your business itself. You can actually scale your support without having the additional costs and burden of having more human resources, more operational resources, as well as just the whole problems that come with having a huge amount of resources involved. Yes, and it can also help you acquire customers for life. So this is the Freshworks promise, right? Efficient implementation, a dedicated squad that will help you with the implementation, quick ROI, as well as 24/7 customer support, all at no additional cost whatsoever. Just a quick snapshot of our customer portfolio. Like I mentioned, we work with a number of brands across the African continent. And in case you have any questions with respect to these brands, just feel free to reach out to me. And that sort of leads to the end of this presentation, ladies and gentlemen. I shall stop my screen sharing and I'll give it to Eldon to proceed from here.
Thank you very much, Ashwin. Ladies and gents, I actually did something very interesting. I asked ML Africa to give us a sense of who joined the call today. And so we're very pleased to say we've got a really, really diverse African audience today. We've got people from all over our continent. I'm seeing that there's some attendees from Harare, Zimbabwe. Welcome, neighbors. Nice to see you. I'm seeing some attendees from Lagos, Nigeria. So for those of you who are from up north, West Africa, very nice to have you join us. I'm seeing Addis Ababa from Ethiopia. I'm seeing more from, excuse me, ladies and gents, this is now my laptop ringing. You weren't supposed to hear that audio, but these things happen when you work from home. So really a diverse audience from across Africa. Uganda, Kampala is on the list. So very, 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 very nice to see. We know that the average age in Africa is about 19 years old. So we've got a growing, ever burgeoning population. And I'm interested to see to what degree Africa can equip its young workforce in order to be even China's China, right? So the average wealth in China is increasing, and the cost of production, the cost of creating goods, products, and services is increasing. And that's a wonderful opportunity for Africa to upskill its youth to be able to take over from where China is today. And so I'm interested to understand the role of AI and the role of African incubators, tech startups, and those kind of technology hubs across the continent to make sure that we are ready to take up the challenges and the opportunities that are presented to us around the corner. Ashwin, thank you very much for your presentation. Ashwin, ladies and gents, spoke to us about using AI and automation to transform customer experience with specific reference to the products and solutions that the Freshworks suite of products have. I'm looking forward, Ashwin, to playing around with Freddy, and perhaps that's something we can do between now and our next webinar, play around with Freddy, and maybe use that as a bit of a use case to understand the useful role of AI in our lives. I mean, thinking about AI, how does that apply to us? How does that apply to you and me? I, for example, have started using an app that tracks my sleep, right? So approaching middle age, entering middle age, now I don't sleep kind of the way I used to before, so I track my sleep. I would love, for example, to see AI take my sleep, figure out when I'm about to wake up and automatically switch the coffee pot on, right? So that's the kind of useful AI that I would like to see play a meaningful role in my life. At the moment, I know AI is used in chatbots. And so it's a very linear decision tree logic that is being set up. So we use AI, machine learning, and that sort of thing to train our computers to do what if logic. So if I choose this, then that happens. If I choose that, then that happens, in order to provide answers. And I'm looking forward to see a far more immersive, integrated AI in my life, so that it does the boring things as a human that I don't really want to be doing. So maybe in our Q&A, we'll discuss that a little bit and see if some of our panelists have a view towards that kind of AI. Ladies and gents, I forgot to invite you to ask any questions. So why don't you do so? I think Ashwin is going to hang around with us a little bit more. So if there are any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to pop it into the chat. We like to actually engage with you. So I look at the chat and we'll ask those questions and put it to our panelists. So any questions for Ashwin, please shoot through. We're going to move over now to Shane Petersen. And I would like to extend the same invite to you all. If there's any questions about what Shane is presenting, pop it through and we will ask Shane to address those questions after his presentation. So you're all going to think I'm joking. Last time we did this, we had Professor Morne Roberts Lombard, who's a very significant individual in my life. He was my university professor. Today we have Shane Petersen, who is also a very significant individual and friend in my life. I met Shane probably 3 or 4 or 5 years ago when he was at that stage, forgive me, Shell, right? Shane was head of customer operations at Shell, whom we all would know as the energy company. These days, Shane is a very consummate retail and customer experience professional with a career spent mostly in and around the energy sector, including working at Shell in its downstream business in Africa and North America. So an international perspective that he can bring with us, informed by his roles in B2B and B2C, sales, marketing, operations, and customer experience, where he was applying his progressive thinking in transforming businesses from the inside out and optimizing strategic outcomes. Shane has ably led customer operations at Shell, managing massive change management projects, including offshoring and turnarounds, and winning multiple performance and safety awards as the regional manager for Shell Retail before deciding to exit mainstream corporate and start his own business in retail consulting through the franchise evolution. And the other, which has relevance for today's topic, an asset management and facilities management organization named Origo Africa. Welcome, Shane. We'd like to invite you just to explain to us very quickly what Origo Africa does, and also share to us who ideally in today's audience you would be targeting your presentation towards. So who are you speaking to? We're going to invite you to turn your camera on and unmute your mic and share with us today's presentation. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thanks, Eldon, for that warm welcome. And Origo Africa has been a brainchild for a good number of years now. And then last year, through the COVID period, this was one of the startups which we put into motion. Origo Africa is heavily involved in asset management and facilities maintenance, as you were describing a little bit earlier. And I'd love to share with you just some of the parallels which I see in the customer experience space as well as in the asset management space. And I think from my perspective, having been in major multinationals and then also being on the receiving end of it as a customer, but then also as a franchisee and now running the consulting business, I think there's a huge amount of learnings which I can bring into this space and then grow the community. The ideal audience today for me would be, and given the audience which you've got on the line, would be customer experience managers and operations managers which have physical assets which fulfill their customer proposition. And this could be franchise outlets, this could be service branches of offices, of governments, it could also be plants and depots. So with that, I'm just going to bring up the presentation and hopefully you can see that in a second. Great. So I just want to do a mic check. Everyone can still hear me okay?
Sound, video, and presentation all perfect.
Excellent. So as I was mentioning, this is about providing more insights into how the parallels in customer experience as well as asset management and how they actually start to interface. And this is what I've discovered over the last year is how much similarity there is in building CX and then also building asset management using the right technologies to do so. And then ultimately in fulfillment of the customer journey and the customer experience. So during the COVID time, a lot of the buzzwords were about pivoting, about looking at more holistic pictures. And I think I want to take you on a journey today in this conversation to probably something which maybe in the European sense you started doing, in Africa started to open up recently and then locking down again. But in the peak of summer, here's your scenario. With blistering 30 degrees, 40-degree temperatures, you're pretty happy with the aircon if you do have it inside of your vehicle. But if you've got kids in the car, like I do, you want to give them a bit of a treat on a hot day, and you pull into the drive-through for this. And most of us know the answer. It's kind of like a Murphy's Law. In the time of summer, there's something that's going to happen in terms of the ice cream machine not being in order. And some of us have either seen this on the drive-through ordering box or stuck onto the side of the ordering window when you move through the drive-through. It's the absolute worst experience. And this is, all the experience driving through up onto the ramp or through into the service window, expectant of getting something great, something cold, something sweet to refresh. And all of a sudden, your CX expectations were just dropped off. And most businesses, unfortunately, only realize how important the asset is when that asset is actually down, resulting in, let's never do this again. And ultimately what your customer's doing is walking with their feet, with their wallet, and with their car. So interestingly enough, the nature of how poor asset management on these machines has actually driven a social media following. And I'm not going to mention the actual brand here, but you can maybe interpret it from the source that you can see on the bottom of the slide. It's gained a social media following in that a website was born with the public feeding in. Now, how amazing is that? That the general public is monitoring the uptime of your assets, and whose job should that realistically be? Yeah. So you'll see across this slide a bunch of percentages, even in certain of the cities in the States, where customers are telling you that those machines are not working. It's not the customer's job to tell you which machines are working or which are not working. And this is where we start to look to, well, what is the asset management looking like behind the scenes? What is the failure rate and the downtime of these equipment? What does it actually look like? It shouldn't be at a 34, 35%. But that then takes its questions towards, do you have integrated maintenance planning? How intelligent are your systems behind the scenes? And then ultimately what this is dropping the customer experience, which is, as we know, the sum total of the end-to-end experience. Another example, and this is a great looking site, by the way. I've been in energy for a very long time. This is a Spanish oil company, but a similar example here. You're on a long road trip anywhere within Africa, within the continent, and after a refuel that you pulled into a service station and potentially wanting to get something in the shop, you ask the kids, or you ask yourself, who needs to use the bathroom? Now, I've got 2 kids, 10 years and 7-year-old, and if we're on a long trip down to the coast, this is the question which pops up very frequently in a 6-hour journey. But to be honest, this is how some of those facilities actually have looked, and these are real facilities that I've experienced in my past life. Now, with that great experience that you've had on the forecourt, in refueling your vehicle, potentially it matches the same as what you see in the bathrooms in front of you, or it's a direct disconnect to what should be the case. what your expectations are. So your net promoter score just got cut short. And as I said, your customer from this point onwards will decide either to continue in patronage to that location, or alternatively will be moving on and then not returning in any form, shape of loyalty whatsoever. So today we're going to explore a few of these parallels in asset management in the world of CX, and how AI is driving asset uptime to drive CX and customer loyalty. So I decided I'm not going to show you a picture of myself there or any of my other details. I thought there's a QR code. It should take you to some of my vitals. Eldon asked me the question a bit earlier. So what is Origo Africa about? And ultimately what Origo Africa does in the asset management and facilities maintenance space is around selling insights. We sell some great software, we sell some great consulting services, but ultimately what we do is we provide information to make better decisions. So we built this company last year, and we provide three main service archetypes into the industry. First one is a fully outsourced facilities management, and what that means is any, or at least all of your maintenance gets provided to us, and we will then find the contractors effectively to continue that work, carry out the work to the budgets and the processes which have been set. The second one which we do is in providing CMMS. So this is computerized maintenance management software, where we're accredited vendors for the software across the African continent. And that's, you know, between those first two and the third one, I'm going to focus quite a bit in driving the AI message through this presentation. And the third one is about general engineering advisory services that we cover. So our ideal customer, again, is that customer experience manager, or the operations manager, or engineering manager, which has heavy or medium asset utilization in their business. Now, after all of those slides have been said and done, I'm only now showing you the content slide. And the reason for that is lining up with that same jerk that you experienced at the front end when we were talking about purchasing the ice creams, or when wanting to use the bathrooms at a service station. This is that jarring experience, and hopefully it's not that jarring that you get disappointed you only see it now, but it goes to customer expectations. Right, and similar to what we saw before in those examples, this is a good place as any in getting your attention back into the game. So I will talk a little bit about customer journey mapping, some asset focus. What is asset management really? I'm sure that's a question on a lot of your minds. Talking about prescriptive maintenance and how AI and ML is used in it, and then also some of the new ways of working in asset management that we see going forward. So we all know customer journey mapping, absolutely critical. There's lots of great software out there, and as we know, Gartner keeps on publishing ratings of these tools, and this conference today is sponsored by one of those great tools. The message from the slide really is, as much as you pursue the sexiness, the glitz, the glamour, the colors, always talk about the flashing lights and the sounds, to build wow experiences for your customers. In these customer journey maps, there's one aspect which traditionally comes on day one, like we saw in the ice cream machine. Once it gets implemented, it doesn't work. So those of you who know this series will recognize this image, which from a series called Game of Thrones. It is the wall, and for all intents purposes, and for today, this is the wall that effectively divides who are the bad folks, and all the ugly things out there, and all of the bad forces. And then on the other side of the wall, it's where the good folks who have beautiful castles, thrones, lands, and kingdoms. And the reason why I'm showing you this is talking about how amazing customer journey maps are, and the customer experience build looks like. One must never forget that asset management strategy, and even for those consummate professionals out there who've been focusing on CX or customer, the asset management strategy cannot be kept separate. And winning organizations will have to put these together in the roles of customer experience as well as asset management in a similar space, cross-functional team to ensure the consistency end to end. And this really is it, is that there is no wall to the customer. I normally like to look at business models very, very simply, which is in people, platform, and process. And traditionally, you build up a customer journey strategy, how it's meant to look like. But then the other side of that same triangle, and actually upside down for that exact purpose, is something which is really, it's not really in my realm. It's always that distant cousin who is always problematic, and you don't want them around the flashiness of your customer journey. Why? Because they probably always get it wrong. And that's the problem, is that the wall is there to divide customer journey management and asset management and facilities maintenance. So what really is asset management? And I thought, let me just throw a word chart up there where you can start to just find some of the words in there which probably make sense to you. It's about equipment, it's about facilities, it's about the IT processes, it's about property, it's about cost. But fundamentally, that last word that I mentioned about cost really is where a lot of the asset management and the facilities maintenance is unfortunately burdened with in the eyes of so many people. So a quote from one of the leading practitioners in asset management and asset management, facility management, I'll be using these terms interchangeably as we go along. But suffice to say that facility management profession is charged with maintaining it, but fighting for the lowest cost and operating it to its standard potential, not even to its peak potential, but standard potential. And traditionally, in organizations which have got a really strong customer experience outlook, really strong strategies in place, oftentimes maintenance and asset management is seen as a drag on customer experience, and a drag that no one's really going to win. So let's just talk a little bit about what are these maintenance strategies and how exactly does AI and ML fit into it. So at the very basic level, when something breaks, that's called reactive maintenance. The very proactive companies that we've come into touch with in our business is looking at preventative maintenance, which is, it's similar to with your car, potentially, on an annual basis, you need to take your car and your car needs an oil change, or your car needs a brake pads fitted because it's what we do on an annual basis. Then you move further along, where predictive maintenance employs the use of sensors to precisely collect data which describes the asset's condition and overall operational state. Yeah, and that's again, if you look to your car, that's that little sensor that says, look, something could go wrong. Your brake pads in probably 4,000 kilometers will need to be replaced. Or your oil monitoring is pretty high, and this is when it's probably going to run out. In terms of taking it a step further, that's where prescriptive maintenance starts to let the machines help you decide, taking it a notch higher in predicting failure events and recommended actions to take. Now, as businesses, and especially across the African continent, and I think we know this very well, is we tend to stay on the first two on the left-hand side of the spectrum, just because, cost-wise, upfront, and also on a day-to-day basis, it feels like the simplest thing to do. If you move further to the right-hand side, upfront, much higher cost to do, much higher potentially running cost on a daily basis versus the previous two. But fundamentally, these are the two things you need to be taking into account. The more prescriptive maintenance which you adopt in your business, the higher your customer experience is going to be. Why? Because you've got experience built into your algorithms, built into the AI, built into the ML, which will determine when things need to get fixed. So think about the ice cream machine, think about an aircon or HVAC machine, think about all sorts of other things, especially in temperature sensing. However, often folks also look at this and say, look, the more that I move to the right-hand side, it's a higher cost to me and my organization. So I just want to keep it simple. The thing is, on a total cost of ownership basis, to repair on a reactive basis and a preventative basis actually tends to be 50% higher than it would be on the far right-hand side of total asset ownership. So another statistic, 50% of all organizations which have implemented prescriptive have saved more than 50% than those who save, or at least those who maintain their assets reactively. And that's a big number. If we're talking about the maintenance budgets, which you can easily very, very quickly move into customer experience budget, these are some huge numbers within a built asset environment. So coming into some of the segue on the smart devices and where AI really fits into this, these devices, Eldon said it himself, and I'm so glad he said it because I think I got the same app as you, Eldon, that these apps and these devices are everywhere, every day, and they're always on. Yeah, and the key through all of this is how do you automate this through your life? How do you automate this in your business to make better things happen and enable technology to take over? So this is a really busy slide, but fundamentally what I'm trying to convey is how, if you remember the term CMMS, so computerized maintenance management systems, how this looks to automate manual processes, building the assignment rules, logic, and the accelerated processing. So on the left-hand side, just as you look at that, listen to this piece. So traditional contact centers are built on SOPs, built on workflows, built on process charts, and driving towards obviously empowering the front line. I'm absolutely all for that. And how do you empower the front line is with the best technology possible, aiding that in discussion or that engagement with the client. What you should consider though, and this is what we do at Origo, is how do you program that knowledge? How do you plug that knowledge, those experience into the algorithms, into the processing, that it doesn't sit and be call it slave to someone who does have all of that experience. And this model then can run separately, can run continuously 24/7 using the right principles and the right algorithms in place. On the far right-hand side, this is some of the front end of our system, which then talks either to sensor-driven input, and I'll show an example in a second, but then also the manual inputs, which are looking to really decrease the finger touches that happens when a maintenance task is logged. So understanding that digital transformation starts with the ESSA principle. So eliminate, simplify, standardize, and automate. The key is to try and get through the workflow, try and program that as much as possible to eliminate unnecessary steps and unnecessary parts of the process flow, simplify it and standardize it, and then automate it through the right tools like we've been talking about so far. This is an example of that edge integration. So we'll use IoT, edge, smart devices. And in this example here, you can see that this edge device is fitted to a HVAC system. So this is heating, ventilation, and aircon. Effectively, it continuously measures the temperature. It could also measure the particulate matter in the air. It then builds all of that data into a data lake, into customizable consoles, and then running through parameters and sending it through APIs into our system urgent, which then generates the task that needs to be done. So once that temperature consistently stays above a certain parameter or below a certain parameter, the console will then decide, hold on, something needs to be done here, send a ticket out, and then allocate that to a contractor via all the assignment rules, via all the allocations, so that no one really has to get involved apart from the contractor, going to the site, determining the problem, and then fixing it. I also throw in some of the pieces there about Power BI, the ERP software, and as I said before, it's all about generating the insights. So this is pretty much how the predictive maintenance model works, where you have the sensors and that then drives outcomes. The piece on going forward and moving forward in this AI sense, and then how does this get into CX, is this evolving intelligent console and this intelligent visualization, parameter building, and then how does the system talk to the asset, fix the asset potentially itself, or advise someone, this is what you need to do in order to fix the asset in those anomalies which have been brought to bear. Now, we mentioned before, a lot of it's around generating the insights. And a lot of you will know, if you're CX professionals, the chart on the right-hand side talks very strongly to you on NPS, on the key performance indicators. What does this look like by your customer segmentation, etc. And on the left-hand side, that's what I'm talking to, is in SLAs, it's on spend, it's on delivery to promise. So we know that one bad experience, as we threw before in the ice cream example, hollows the end-to-end experience. And what can be absolutely beautiful from playing up the customer in that journey can be destroyed almost immediately. So the end-to-end facilities maintenance program, there are lots of new ways of working out there in trying to keep your assets performing to expectation. Secondly, identifying and intervening early to prevent business and equipment downtime. Thirdly is about control over your OPEX as well as your CAPEX, and creating an integrated plan around that. Leveraging the data, and this is what we spoke about before in managing the big data, and then also liberating time for employees to focus on customers, not on maintenance administration. I love what was the number previously from Freddy, where there was a 70% reduction in the time taken to resolve. Origo's had the example of a 90% reduction in time of a national operations manager in using our software on managing maintenance. And then lastly, which actually should be the number one point, which is about delivering on the brand promises for speed, efficiency, and the overall customer experience. So yeah, I think a lot of us talk about customer experience and voice of the customer. Also, potentially on an annual basis, we have voice of the employee experience, the EX. And then we also talk about business performance. What is the profit margins? What does the volume throughput look like, etc. But very infrequently does asset performance fit in there. So what is the voice of the assets? And this is an evolving piece of work to be able to slice and dice these customizable dashboards to geographic areas, customer missions, sales divisions, platforms, etc., to build a leadership-driven focus and all touch points focus within the business. So lots of other sexy technology out there, which is driving better inputs into the facilities maintenance space. Virtual reality is absolutely flying right now. Cloud hosting, far less on-premise work, and a lot of work, which, as we said, on big data and analytics. So I'll end off with this slide, and really the summary takeouts here is customer experience is end-to-end, and none of us can actually dispute that. Customer journey strategy is as important as the enabling asset management program that supports it. And the use of AI, machine learning, is a higher cost to implement, but represents a total lower cost of ownership and a higher CX correlation. CX by its very nature is end-to-end and therefore ultimately linked. And then lastly, to win sustainably, that development of that cohesive view of the business, that voice of our business, touches on CX, EX, asset management, and business performance. So in closing, surround yourself with assets and not liabilities, because that's ultimately where your customer experience will fall down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shane. Interesting presentation. We enjoyed that very much. You know what you made me think of? That good old trip down from, for those in South Africa, you'll relate to this, that good old trip down from Pretoria, Johannesburg, down to Durban, and down to Cape Town. And, during my childhood, the number of times we stopped at Children's City. It's kind of an institution in South Africa.
Yeah.
And you know what? You're so right. If you go back to that picture about the ablution facilities, do they actually fundamentally understand the role that they play in enabling and, excuse the pun, the journey of the customer, including the customer experience journey, as I move my family down from Pretoria to Joburg? The number of times you've walked into Shell Ultra City and it looks like that and smells even even worse, right? Now, Yogesh, my colleague, and I were actually discussing this with a customer, and this is the Disney experience.
Yes.
I've been to Disney. Shane, you've been to Disney. When you drive there, when you walk in, almost the first thing that happens at Disney when you walk in is they say, "Here are the bathrooms,"
Yeah.
because when you get out of the car, it's probably the first need that you have. And the only reason why they have that insight is because they took the time to think outside in. They took the time to think what the customer's need would be. So I don't stop at Shell Ultra City because I want to fill my tank. I stop there because I want to fill my tank, buy my kids a bit of an ice cream, so hopefully the machine is working, and get a sense of relief from going to a room that looks something like this, hopefully 1,000 times cleaner, right? So those are really, really, really important things to start to think of in your business. What is the equivalent, I guess? What is the equivalent in your business of these kind of things that matter to customers that we don't often think through, or we don't think through very well because we're leading with process? So ladies and gents, attendees, I would love you to challenge me and differ with me on this and ask any questions that you want to of Shane. But I believe as a customer experience professional, we think so much about the efficiency, the effectiveness, and the things that we need to make happen in our business that make it easier for us that we forget about the customer, right? And the things that the customer needs, the things that the customers value, the things like the clean, usable bathrooms. Every shopping center, Shane, that I go to, and we know South Africa has got tons and tons of shopping centers. When I want to go to the bathroom, there's always like a 3-kilometer long alley.
The tunnel of uncertainty.
There you go, right? What is this? The access to a bathroom for me in a shopping center should be as easy as it is to walk into Jet, Edgar's, or Pick n Pay. Right?
I think there's a huge. You're right. There's a huge amount. I think from a real estate development perspective, even from a national government office perspective, how often have, and especially our brothers and sisters across Africa, how often have you also walked into a government office, asked them, hey, where's the bathroom? Hey, we never do that. But then the second thing is how many things actually don't work. Yeah, and those are the things which really need to get embraced, because it isn't just the transaction. Yeah, it isn't just buying the burger. It isn't just about getting a stamp in your passport, but it's about that full journey and that experience from the time that you turn the corner in going towards the bathroom. How far is it? Do they understand the needs of a family? You spoke about kids. I've got 2 kids, and they're not going to wait for that long journey to get around the corner. So it really is about how do you make sure your customer experience isn't just clear process, very, very streamlined, prim and proper, and color and flashing lights, etc. But it's about understanding what makes it work, not just what works. Yeah.
Shane, while I invite the audience to ask a question or two, a couple of things came up for me.
Eldon, I think I lost your comms there for a second.
Yeah. Apologies for that. I have been having some internet issues. I said there's 1 or 2 questions that came up for me. So in your mind, what comes first? This whole asset management thing or customer experience?
I think it's a great question. The piece around understanding the customer obviously comes first, and from a you use the phrase from the outside in. So how do you design your processes according to what the customer needs are? Once that is very clearly defined, you cannot just go forward, implement, and then hope everything else sticks in the process. It's kind of like I love Formula One, and as an analogy, you can't just have a great driver or a flashy car. You need to have a great driver and you need to have a flashy car or racy car. You can't have one or the other, and that's not how performance in the customer side, or actually winning, if we use that terminology, you can't have one and not the other.
Thank you. And just, second question for me, where do you see AI progressing within the facilities management and the asset management maintenance space in the next 5 years?
I think there's this, can technology do itself, so autonomously. So we know about all of the self-driving vehicles, we know about as much that just fixes itself. The piece, and if you specifically look at that slide, I think it probably would be shared, but given that following out there, given the extent of customers rating that franchise about the uptime of their equipment, is how do you get the equipment ultimately to almost self-correct? Yeah, how do you get that equipment on a remote basis to then fix itself? How do you get the technician to then follow all the data trends which has come to him, and the computer or the algorithm says, you know what, you need to replace the isolator and pin 5. Yeah, that's all you need to do. Don't go and change this filter and that filter and that and that, but being that prescriptive to it to then get immediate resolution. I think we're going to see far more integration between CX and then asset management as we go down the chain. I think we're going to start seeing far more of enablers in AI linking the two together and making sure that there will be suitable outcomes, better results, and better experiences for customers.
Okay, ladies and gents, there you heard it from Shane. Let's see, let 5 years pass. Let's hold him accountable and see if what Shane has shared with us today has actually come to life. I'm looking forward to the day where these very weird ethereal sort of ideas, where you drink a pill every morning and it goes and assesses everything throughout your body and tells you on your smartphone all of the things, the basic things that you need to know. And actually, wouldn't that have been very useful in today's world where we find ourselves with COVID and all of the complications that COVID is causing with various people? Anyway, thank you for that, Shane. I would like to invite into the conversation now our friend Francis. Francis Sirus is also from Freshworks. Francis, Shane, and I would like to have a discussion, an interactive discussion with you attendees, please. So please join us. I'm going to ask Francis if you wouldn't mind to enable your camera, enable your mic, and we've already met Shane, so I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind just to give the audience an introduction to Francis and what you do and what your role is at Freshworks.
Thank you so much, Eldon. And hey, Shane, I should definitely let you. That was really a very good presentation from your end. It gives a lot of perspective. Quick introduction about myself. Francis Sirus, and I've been handling sales in Africa for almost 5 years now, and it's been a roller coaster ride. I've had the opportunity to travel across Africa, from Egypt until Joburg, or Cape Town for that matter, and the region itself is so much diverse in nature, and when it comes to diversity, I hail from India, and I can really relate how much of a diversity and how much of a customer experience has evolved in a diverse continent like Africa, right? So that's it about me, and I'm really looking forward, for this session.
Thank you very much. So maybe I'll stick with you for the first question, and then follow up with you, Shane. How do we see digital adoption with respect to customer engagement from the Freshworks perspective, Francis?
Yeah, see, with actually, the COVID, all before pre-COVID or post-COVID, if you look at it, I would say, digitization has taken a utmost priority, since maybe March 2021, right? With it's not a luxury anymore. Companies have to be digitized, have to have virtual channels open for their customers and reaching out to them. So the digital, or the digitization has become a need of the hour more than any luxury anymore. So that's what, and Freshworks has been a pioneer in digitizing the customer engagement since our inception itself, right? So Freshdesk was found because of a bad customer experience. Obviously, there's a whole story to it, and I would love to explain it, but it's all over the internet. So that's what our company was. Look, a company was born because of a bad customer experience that our CEO had.
So thank you very much, Shane. I mean, you have experience both on the corporate side, when you were head of customer ops at Shell, and also now. But how do you see, the same question, how do you see digital adoption with respect to, customer engagement? But I'd like to ask if you have an Africa-wide perspective on this question.
So it's such a good one, because one of the companies that we work with at Origo is based in the UK, and they've got an Australian sister company, and the initial conversations with them around digital adoption in Africa were questioning, okay, but what's the real mobile penetration within Africa? Do you guys have 3G? Do you guys have self-service terminals or customer service units? And there's this dramatic, almost disconnect from a with all respect to everyone else on the call, but there's this dramatic disconnect from a Western or European sense into the African context, where we're actually leading in so many of these areas about even 5G, around the speed of our towers, around the level and the penetration of mobile connectivity within our communities. I think to such an extent that the transition for our customers, it almost makes it easier, because it's almost that second-hand nature, because we haven't been on this long journey like a lot of the European countries have been. We've actually been on a very short burst of speed, getting up to the same speed as it sits in the West or in Europe. One of the examples that I really love is there's a chicken brand, and it was born in the US, and it's got a huge amount. I think it's over 1,200 restaurants in South Africa and also throughout Africa. But they've just only now, probably less than a year ago, experimented with the customer service unit. So these are the individual digital units standing next to the queue. And the restaurant with the big letter effectively forced customers and told customers, listen, you no longer can order at the counter, but you have to use these terminals. Again, very jarring in the experience, but it's that almost this force to the customer, you need to go to the digital. The other chicken brand, what I noticed in talking with them, they've offered this, that the customer has an alternative to use the digital box. But you know what happened? In the queue that I was standing in, there were 3 people in front of me. The store had just recently been revamped, and the customer service unit was on the left-hand side. As we're standing in the queue, we're wondering, why is no one using this new customer service unit? And again, maybe that's our mental model. Maybe that's the transition that needs to be helped. And I think no one helped me to move to the customer service unit. I walked, and the minute I walked, the rest of the folks also said, hold on, but there's another side just behind it. And I can get served earlier, quicker, and get my food faster. So I think we are big learners. I think we have been followers. I think we're going to see the technology move far quicker across our continent. I think it's about people leading people, and then leading by example. You can't just expect this to be forced by the franchise, but it needs to be almost the rest of us educating each other and then moving along.
Okay, so you got so many thoughts triggering for me. I'm going to tell you 2 stories. One is a 2013 story where I went to McDonald's in Spain. And that's the first time where I saw these digital ordering things, right? And what do I think of the experience? Well, I guess I have control. Suppose that's nice, but it is a little bit weird. I want to actually, in my personal preference, I want to actually be able to speak to someone on the other side of the counter and ask for extra ketchup, and then ask for what he thinks of, the Big Mac versus the chicken Cajun or whatever. I kind of like that. So in my studies, I studied customer value and came up with a concept there that I call strategic gifting. And this means that I think of smart things primarily anchored in what is the kind of things my company is resourced well in, right? So if I've got a lot of sand, then I make bricks, as opposed to what is the actual need, what is the requirement of my customers? What do people who buy from me, that patronize my business, what do they need, so that I can provide that which provides tangible value? In other words, the utility that I get from acquiring the product or the service. And then also the intangible value, which is the experience around, how I feel, how I perceive the interaction to be. And organizations, I don't think have got that understanding right as yet. The other story I'd like to tell you is about my local KFC down the corner. So I'm going to slander and shame brands here today.
So you're calling out the brands, Eldon. You're calling them out. I just said it's the one with the letter, and then the one with the chicken that started in the States.
I'm going to do it. KFC now, they encourage me to, during lockdown, to order online. So I order on the app. I've got a thing that I like. My wife has got a thing that she likes. My daughter's got a thing that she likes. AI is not yet effective in to say we'll see for 4 times in a row now. This has been your exact order. So shall we just organize this for you? Anyway, so I go through step by step, and I buy what I want and so on. Then it sends me a code, and then I jump in my car. It's literally 10 minutes down the road, And when I get there, the order is still not made. So it actually takes longer because I've got to queue either in the drive-thru or in store, get to the front, and then tell people that I'm here in order to make my order. It's crazy.
Defeats the purpose.
Right?
Yeah.
So 100%. So our very smart thinking, our move to digital, our supposed artificial intelligence is not yet effectively in service to humans. So I'm going to throw this question at you then, Francis. Customer response versus customer resolution. And again, I'm going to actually add to this question, customer outcome, because I'm not looking for a response from your brand. I'm looking for an outcome, and I'm looking for that outcome to serve me on my terms. How do you think we are differentiating between customer response and resolution, but more importantly, outcome? I'm not sure if everyone can hear Francis. Francis, I can't hear you. So perhaps if you wouldn't mind just reloading your screen, maybe it's a refresh. Ladies and gents, hopefully this doesn't take too long, but sometimes the internet cables beneath the Pacific Ocean let us down a little bit. Maybe we can ask that question, Shane. How do you, advise your clients, your customers around? Francis, okay, I'll give Shane some time to think of the same question. Did you get it from me, Francis? You comfortable to answer?
Yeah, I got it. Is it? Am I audible now?
Perfect.
Sorry about that. Perfect. So when it comes to customer response and customer resolution, most of the companies or most of the LBIS solutions they misunderstand being customer response can be anything, right? A basic acknowledgement can also be called as a customer response, whereas a resolution is has to be really focused enough. If it takes more than the customer support agent, if it takes additional people to collaborate within the organization and provide a resolution, the help desk or whatever tool they are going to use has to support that kind of a platter to them. So I would say the outcome, obviously, first of all, speed matters. That is why we have AI in place. You cannot take, you have to stick to your SLA when it comes to a customer resolution. but handling it effectively using a collaborative approach, right? Not all customer support agents will have answers to the questions that the customers raise. So being genuine about it to a customer, including other collaborators within the organization to support a customer query is all key when it comes to a customer resolution. That's what I would say.
So I'm actually going to change the question, Shane.
I was just going to respond to that question.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
So two thoughts in my mind here. Just it also links back to the previous question, and you used the example of the big letter quick service restaurant. So in my previous role within Shell, I used to spend a lot of time out in Poland, and Poland's got one of the biggest service centers and customer service centers of about, I think it's about 1,000 people within that multinational's customer service center across Europe and certain parts of Africa. And going to receive that self-service terminal at that big letter restaurant was extremely bizarre for me as an African who's used to that personal engagement. And this goes back to your question. Is are we ready? And I see there's one question similar to that. Is are we ready for that shift to the full digital? Do we have the landscape? Do we have the architecture to do so? The thing is, I think we're in that period where either we jump on really quickly or we need that blended piece between what AI is feeding and then also what that personal experience needs to be. Yeah. And the one experience that I want to talk about here is there's a bank in South Africa. It's a green bank, and this bank then has a commitment whenever you do go into the branch, is that someone, no matter where you stand, someone will acknowledge you. Yeah. So if you're standing in the queue, someone will acknowledge you. So to your question, and that makes you feel absolutely amazing, because in the bank, you're going there, you have to stand, unfortunately, for a long period of time, and it's effectively a grudge that you're having to do. It's a grudge transaction. But that mere physical and that emotional and psychological connect that you just established with someone overcomes certain amounts of that anxiety. And I think that's probably part of the answer to what we're talking about here, is how do you create that blended environment where it's still very much human, and maybe it's be in the intonation, in how you're programming the languages, in responding to customer queries, even on WhatsApp. So how are you creating that AI to talk the way the customer would, recognizing the customer, giving some sort of a response that we will get to your issue. The last point that I wanted to share here is in the time of COVID, most of us are doing one thing apart from staying at home. The other thing that we're doing is preparing our wills, which is your last will and testament. So here's the example that I had, sending a note to one of my service providers in the banks and saying, hey, I'd love to have a conversation with one of your, what are they called, fiduciary staff. And she says, absolutely, I will sort that out. And I give them the time, no one responds. Yeah, and this is, over email, person to person. No one responds, and then I get a note about half an hour after the time I asked for the call to happen. Sorry, I didn't call you. Now, this is where AI steps up and starts to control all of those manual processes and takes the guesswork out of it. It starts to, if used correctly, blended in the African continent, in the African context, to get that commitment to the customer or to the client. It also gets some sort of an assurance of this impending service or impending, use the word, customer resolution, that I have this journey to go. But when they actually call you at that time, and not as a sales call, but actually you've pushed it, and Poppy also changes the game here. But that's how important it is. Using those three brands and those three experiences is how do you make it more comfortable? How does it speak to you in your own language? How does it feel more natural in its intonation to mean something to you and create brand, experience, and loyalty.
Okay. So, in fact, what I've ignored is some of the chats and Q&A before I follow up with that with some of my observations. So thank you very much. Just looking at some of the things that came through the chat. Thanks to you, Ashwin from Biruk. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. Biruk from Ethio Telecom, who is an engineer there. Matthew Voiceage, thanks Ashwin. So some acknowledgement, some thanks going out to Ashwin for the presentation and what you've shared. Irene G, marketing manager under 1K store, AI to interpret your dreams too. So I guess that is a response to the example that I gave around. I use the app, and can the app make my coffee in the morning and bring that to me as well? So thank you very much for that. I suppose where there's a will, there's a way. I believe fundamentally in the scientific method, and if that can be done, it will be an interesting world. Ashwin just made a comment. Ashwin, who presented earlier, are there any initiatives revolving around CRM/contact center/ITSM in your organization at present? And is inviting you to all connect with him to see, how Freshworks can help. Kobina, I think Shane has responded to this. He's talked to this ever so slightly. Is Africa ready to harness the real benefits of AI? Do we have the ecosystem to leverage 5G to optimize AI? I'd actually like you to answer this question, but let me share with you, Kobina, my observations. So we in South Africa actually have a far superior, far more advanced banking system than in North America. Shane, I'm sure you will agree given your experience there. In America, I still have family who live there, who get paid and who pay using checks, paper checks. That is a technology that has long since been phased out in South Africa. In addition, we in Africa and in South Africa in particular, we look at the USA to give direction. So what is the Fed or the Federal Reserve doing around issues such as Bitcoin, for example? And I see a massive hesitation around cryptocurrency and a massive, almost an allergy towards adopting decentralized money. And when you look at El Salvador, for example, right, this South American country who has made Bitcoin legal tender, and in the last 2 days, has actually gone a little bit further and encouraged its entire population. If you activate an account using some app, they will actually give you $30 free of charge. Right? They will actually put this money in your Bitcoin account, right? So, I mean, isn't that very, very, very progressive? And when you talk about 3G, 4G, 5G in Africa and us leading some of those technologies, I think back to my own experience working in Vodacom. Now, Vodacom is South Africa's leading mobile network company. They've also got a bit of a presence in some African countries. I can remember when the CEO said that doing business in Africa used to mean that I walk half the day to my friend's house on the other side of town, get there just to find out that he's not there. Then I sit in the sun all day waiting to have a bit of a chat, and I have the same journey back. Now I can use this device. They looked very different, of course. Can use this device and do that business remotely very, very quickly. That's the kind of difference we are making, right? So we think about this now. Where is Africa? Where is the developed world? What are some of the challenges? I mean, I'm sitting in Johannesburg at the moment. Right next door in Eswatini, there's this sort of civil unrest going on. Right next door in Mozambique, in the northern part of Mozambique, there's the civil unrest going on, right? So when you think of the African challenges, are we ready for AI, the technological revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, all of these things? I think it's a fascinating question. When you look at China and its rise, is China a developing country or a developed country? The kind of success that it's getting out of a, quite frankly, undesirable autocratic communist country, right? I mean, these are all the things that we wouldn't have thought would be the recipe of success and wealth creation with a Western model, at least in my world. But we're seeing success coming out, right? So is Africa ready to harness the real benefits of AI? Do we have the ecosystem to leverage 5G to optimize AI? I don't know. I'd love to hear from you, my fellow Africans, what you think. So those are some of the observations that I've made. But let's return to our questions. And I'm going to ask this of you, if you don't mind, Francis, and I hope your mic is better. Given that AI requires quite a lot of expensive storage and infrastructure, a lot of data, volumes of data, powerful computing systems, how do you think in the context of Africa, SMEs, so these are small businesses, perhaps even informal businesses, can incorporate AI given their limited budgets?
Understood. So when it comes to AI, am I audible?
We can hear you.
Okay. So when it comes to AI, actually, if you look at it, it can be very simple. It doesn't require a huge budget, to deploy. That is why we have, SaaS products, right? And ready to use products, wherein, for example, let's take implementing a chatbot solution, right? It is a very simplest form of AI that you can think about, which is gonna kind of deflect all the L1 enquiries that you get on your website. It doesn't take a huge investment to do that. But what has to be kept in mind is how do we implement it, right? Actually speaking, chatbots, for that matter, can be really frustrating at times. That too, if it is an irate customer, if I have to repeatedly, had to repeatedly rephrase my point, or if I had to wait for a long time for the chatbot to transition me to a live agent, that is going to be really frustrating as such. But it can be done very simply as well, right? You have to solve as many use cases as possible while implementing a chatbot, so that the chatbot knows, it's not the mistake of the chatbot, it's a mistake of someone who has implemented it wrong, right? And you really, the whole purpose of implementing a chatbot is to deflect the L1 enquiries, right? Like basic FAQs. But so the point has to be, really well thought. A decision tree has to be made in mind, and has to be implemented. And a chatbot implementation is should also help your agents, right? It's going to be a bridge between your customers and your customer support representatives. So you'll have to think from both ways before implementing. If you do all this, right, and not think so big scale at the beginning, right, you can start small, and still get something really best out of your, the AI that you have implemented.
Francis, in one of my past jobs, I did knowledge management consulting. And one of the things that we did is use machine learning to train the AI on customer interactions, where they went wrong and what those fixes were. And then in time, that would actually learn to be able to interpret these things themselves. But I mean, aren't we going to get to a world where, and this has actually happened with Google, I'm sure you're aware of the use case, where the Google AI started creating its own language. So the two bots were talking to each other, and the humans that created it couldn't really understand it. So, isn't there a risk that we can, the AI can sort of, change the rules of the game in such a way that humans don't understand it, that it's useful and possibly even dangerous to humanity? What are your thoughts around that?
To be honest, I still, I love to fantasize such things and watch even movies around it. And I mean, I would strongly believe that technology can never supersede human touch, and as long as we use the technology to the best of it, we anticipate what are all the shortcomings that are going to come if you provide a lot of leverage to the AI. I think such things can be avoided, and technology can definitely be used to increase our productivity and to give a premium support to our customers. I'll give you an example, right? I mean, we are just out of a lockdown. India had faced the second wave, and we are just coming out of the lockdown. Like 2-3 weeks back, when we were in complete lockdown, my internet had an issue, and I couldn't figure out, right? I couldn't do anything. I tried everything, restarted the router, did whatever I could think of, but I couldn't actually bring my internet connection up and running. So when I made a phone call, asked for a technician, they said, sorry, there is no field agent that could come and help you, right? But there was this person who gave me a WhatsApp number, and he said, why don't you WhatsApp chat with it? And trust me, it was a chatbot on WhatsApp, right? And it all I needed was a little bit of patience, right? A little bit of patience to try the workarounds step by step. Before, I mean, see, if at all the same thing had happened on a non-lockdown situation, I would have got furious. I would have said, hey, I'm paying you my money. Why should I do my steps on myself? Right? You come here and fix it. That's how, my tendency would have been. But it was a lockdown situation, and I could understand there is nothing that I could do to get a technician walk to my house. But with that little patience and with the steps told by a bot, I was able to rectify it. So my speed, internet speed, from 10 Mbps went up to 100 Mbps. It within like 10 minutes of me troubleshooting. Right? Yeah, I do have a 100 Mbps internet connectivity at home, and I was able to achieve it. And I think someone has really thought through a chatbot workflow with AI, no human intervention, and I was able to achieve it. So that is where I see a huge success in customer experience, and I'm a delight customer, right?
But Francis, in my experience, AI bots can be quite frustrating. I mean, for example, I've used a little chat button on the bottom of the screen of a typical website and the first thing I normally do, hi, this is Eldon, this is my issue, right? When I introduce myself, the very next question is, what is your name? And then it follows up with, what is your issue? I've already said that. So by the time we've interacted now for 90 seconds, my blood is boiling, right? So I'm going to give you a chance to actually show off a little bit. If AI bots are frustrating, how does Freshworks actually address this concern?
Of course, yeah. That's what I also keep on saying. A very good implementation. First thing is, to feed the AI properly with, a decision tree, right? And for example, the moment you, instead of giving an open text, give options, right? To communicate with your customers. That is definitely gonna help a lot. And obviously, like I said, I did mention this before, you solve as many use cases as possible. So it's not just going out of the market and purchasing a chatbot, right? A chatbot has to be trained enough to handle all the use cases. Again, never, I mean, you cannot blame it on a chatbot for a bad customer experience. You have to blame it on the person who implemented it, because a chatbot will learn whatever the implementation or the whoever implemented the product has told what it has to do with it, right? And also making a transition from a bot to a live agent is very important, right? The moment the bot understands that the customer is irate, the moment the bot understands that this is not going as we thought, this is not going as I'm instructed, there should be a human intervention as well. So with regards to Freshworks, if you look at it, we obviously MultiChoice, one of the largest consumer brand in Africa itself, is using our omni-channel help desk solution. So if you really want to have an experience, definitely go there and look at what we were able to achieve. Again, I mean, it's again a journey. It's not, it learns on itself. It's not, there is no no chatbot that is completely perfect enough, right? It learns over the course, and by properly implementing a chatbot solution, and a very simple chatbot solution, which is like do it yourself stuff. That's what Freshworks helps you to give, provide in the market. And by that, you can definitely ensure that, chatbots don't give a frustrating experience. Rather, it's gonna give a delightful experience. Me personally, I'm not gonna call a service engineer to my home again without trying my own resolution, but without my own because that was the experience that I got. So if a chatbot is able to give that experience to each and every customer, then he's also gonna change like how I did.
Okay, thank you.
I think can I just add to what Francis is
Yes.
saying there, because I absolutely love it. So when I was working out in Canada for a couple of years, and there's a national energy company which is in place, and when you called in, and this was back in 2004, 2005, and when you called in as a South African and you're asking, hi, I'd like to, and it's a voice recognition system back in 2004, and you're saying, I'd like to talk about my bill, and then the bot would take some time and say, sorry, I didn't get that. You would like to talk about your land. And I said, no, I'd like to talk about my bill. And we'd go on for a good couple of seconds, and I'd try to press 9 on my device, just to either 9 or 0. It's going to try and push me through to an attendant. And I think over the course of time, exactly what Francis is then describing is the chatbots of today and the chatbots of tomorrow need to be able to have that much time, energy, effort invested in them, being so natural and being that full of knowledge, full of process understanding, that for the end consumer it feels seamless. So I'll give you another example. I also had a Wi-Fi issue, and the learning in Africa and South Africa is, you know what, never change your internet service provider. Don't look for a better deal, because if you look for a better deal, it will take 10 to 14 days for the new company to come and install, which they don't install anything. They just put in a router and then switch it on. The point is, I had issues trying to set up this new router, and it then hit 5:30, 6:30 on a Friday evening. No service agents are available to help you. And when I'm trying to troubleshoot, and the root of all wisdom is Google, and when you hit into it and you say, how do I set up router XYZ, that's effectively you translating what that bot should have told you ultimately. So I love exactly what Francis is saying, because it is how much time, energy, effort, experience, expertise gets plowed into that bot on what customers would naturally engage with. I sat without internet for that day and most of the next day to try and get someone to talk me through it. And that was Friday night, Saturday, and only on Saturday at about 10 minutes to 12 did my internet come back up. But I could have followed exactly what Francis was describing.
Shane, audience, just to let you know, I got 2 phone calls earlier while we were speaking. And because I couldn't answer them, I got this SMS. So Shane, there's an SMS from my ISP, MWeb. I'm brand shaming today. MWeb, we have tried to contact you. We cannot process a cancellation without verification. So are you telling me I'm going to be without internet once this cancellation goes through for a couple of days?
I am telling you that, correct, yes.
Yes. So my ISP called me, ladies and gents. That's who was trying to bother me while we were on the call. Shane, I would like to ask you the final question. I'll give you some time to think about it. And really, it's a summary of your presentation. If you could share your final thoughts on AI's role in customer experience today. While you think about that, I'm just going to look at the comment that came through from Kobina Atabedu, consultant at Independent. And I guess you were talking, or you're responding to what I said around Bitcoin, decentralized finance, the role of the US Fed, and so on. And you said progressive, ? What's the economics behind it? Oversupply of many, I suppose money, because you clarified that later on. So let's say oversupply of money, demand pull inflation. These are all questions that you're asking. This whole Bitcoin thing is weird to me. Kobina, I'm not quite sure exactly which country you're from. So I can understand Bitcoin being weird. And yes, I also, I've got a little bit of Bitcoin. I'm not quite sure what makes the price go up, what makes the price go down. So I guess that talks to your supply and demand comment. But I know, again, my experience back at Vodacom. Vodacom owns quite a number of networks in wider Africa, one of which is Safaricom in Kenya. And Safaricom has got I guess, a finance product called M-Pesa, right? M-Pesa is digital money. And I don't really see the difference between M-Pesa and Bitcoin all that much. I don't know. So, if Africa's already got digital money, why are we so concerned about, all these questions around Bitcoin? So yes, maybe I don't understand blockchain and distributed ledgers. Maybe I don't understand what's making the price go up and making the price go down. The bottom line is it's actually a medium of exchange. I mean, in South Africa, we have the rand as our currency. Whether I have a 50 rand note or a 100 rand note or a 200 rand note in my wallet, it's actually just a worthless piece of paper. The only thing that gives value to that piece of paper is the trust that I put in that piece of paper. I could just as well take a match and burn it up and have nothing then, and so I don't really understand the apprehension, the lack of certainty, the lack of understanding around Bitcoin or digital currency at all. It's really the meaning that we attach to it. And so I think these issues can easily be unpacked. That regulation can easily be set up, not only in country, but global regulation, so that we can move on to more progressive ways of interacting. That's my opinion. So it'll be interesting to hear what additional thoughts around that are. But let's wrap up our conversation. Shane, I promised to give you the last question. Summarize your presentation for us today, please. What is AI's role in customer experience today?
So it's a long one, and I'm going to try and make it as short as possible. But as I was saying, in our company, Origo is about selling insights. The same like the app that you were talking about on the sleep app. It's providing you insights. The same thing around edge devices within a large asset-heavy organizations or restaurants or service stations. It's about providing insights. Why do you need those insights? Well, you need those insights to generate better decisions and faster decisions. Why do you need to do that? To short circuit the gap in the customer experience and to bring that as resolved as quickly as possible using the best technologies and making better decisions going forward about those technologies or about the customer going forward.
Shane, much appreciated. Thank you very much. Ladies and gents, we'd like to thank you for your time. You've been with us in the AI and Customer Experience webinar on today, the 1st of July, 2021. It was set up by Machine Learning Africa, so we'd like to thank the team there, Zenzele and Lovo, as well as Leslie and Gwenya. Of course, the event is sponsored by Freshworks. Freshworks is the parent company behind the suite of products, which include Fresh Desk, Fresh Service, Fresh Sales, Fresh Caller, Fresh Team, Fresh Chat, Fresh Marketer, really all the products that are designed to work together in collaboration, to increase collaboration and communication so that you can better connect and communicate to your customers and to your co-workers. We'd like to thank Ashwin for his time and for his presentation. We'd like to thank Francis for your time, for your presentation. We'd like to thank Shane for your time and for your presentation. We look forward to engaging with you again as our African audience as we seek to explore AI, its meaning, its value, its contribution that it can make to our lives as consumers, as customers, and as organizations, and as Shane said earlier, as governments. So hopefully we can see you online again soon. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.